I'm Emanuel Williams, Chairman and CEO of Renaissance Global Media, your source of news, politics, business, and up-to-date information for everyday people. We're your conduit of information, making sure you're informed, connecting small businesses, individuals, large corporations, nonprofits, and the power brokers in between. We've got a seat for you at the table and in the room. And guess what? I'm your very own political plug. We're here live on The Balanced Perspective with Emanuel Williams as your host. We are excited to have the President and CEO of INCOMPAS, former Congressman Chip Pickering. Welcome to the show.
Emanuel, good to be with you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and have a conversation with us today.
I'm looking forward to it.
So listen, let's jump this right off and let's mix it up. What's your favorite Mississippi-made food?
Oh, my favorite food would have to be the red fish at Walker's.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, listen, now we're shooting this at the Capitol Club, so I can't tell Chef Deshaun Barnett that you said that. You've got to have his red fish. That's awesome, though. So let's start with your career in politics and how it all began.
So I go to Washington in 1989 to work for the first President Bush. I had lived overseas in Budapest, Hungary for about 15 months.
Okay.
And I went to Baylor to get an MBA with an emphasis in international business, thinking that I'd work in international trade and with nonprofits and churches in Central and Eastern Europe.
Wow.
I thought going to Washington would give me experience in foreign policy and international trade. And so I went to work in the first Bush administration, focused on Eastern Europe trade and policies through the Department of Agriculture. So our farm exports. And then how, as the Iron Curtain collapsed, how do we support both market reforms and reforms to establish democracies in Eastern Europe? After 2 years, I went to work for Senator Lott as he was elected from the House to the Senate in 1988 and began to rise first to whip, then to majority leader. I was on his staff during that time from 1991 to 1995. But importantly, I was given a great opportunity to work on the policies reforming New Deal, Depression era policies focused on natural monopolies and electricity and energy and in telecommunications, as well as working on the Science and Transportation and Commerce Committee of the Senate. Mm-hmm. So NASA, all of our federal research agencies, Stennis Space Center was very critical on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and to the rest of the Mississippi research university institutions. So we were, during that period of time, 91 to 95, reforming energy policy and then what became the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that replaced monopoly policy with competition policy in our networks. Those policies led to new fiber networks first being deployed in the long distance. And we had WorldCom headquartered here. We had SkyTel, Comcast started in Tupelo, Mississippi, and then my hometown of Laurel, Mississippi. And so we've just had this rich history of telecommunications and technology companies beginning in a place like Mississippi. WorldCom rose to have the largest internet backbone in the world for a period of time. Comcast is now the largest cable company in the world. SkyTel started two-way paging, what we now call text. So we're at the birthplace of both the blues, Elvis Presley, and texting, and Comcast, and really the internet backbone that fueled the last 30 years of economic growth and set a blueprint of pro-competition policies that we hope to replicate, not only in broadband policy, but in other parts of the American economy.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
I'm sorry I took such a long answer.
No. I think that's fine. And so I don't think a lot of people know about that technology background here in Mississippi. So we have a supercomputer here in Mississippi.
We actually have supercomputers at all of our 4 research institutions: Jackson State, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Southern Miss. And then we have 2 federal research centers, NASA at the Stennis Space Center on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but it houses one of DOD's supercomputers. The Corps of Engineers in Vicksburg houses a second supercomputer for the Department of Defense, and they only have 5.
Wow.
Nationwide. We have 2 of 5. We lead the entire region of the South in supercomputing capabilities at our 4 universities and 2 federal research centers. So what is driving the economy of the future and the workforce of the future and the education of the future and the healthcare of the future will be AI applications, the things that all are built and come from supercomputer capabilities. And then if you pair them with advanced broadband, high-speed, high-capacity fiber networks and 5G networks, then you have all the building blocks to have a very strong future here in Mississippi, and to compete with our regional neighbors and states and nationally, and to create a workforce that I think will be prepared for the future economy that we're talking about. So one thing that most Mississippians don't know, and it's a well-kept secret, is that we are top 5 in the country on supercomputers, top 15 in the world. And if we take advantage of our digital crossroads of the South, the center of the South, the transport of data now and the hubs of data, combined with supercomputing capability, really is kind of the gold in the ground or the oil in the ground. It really will be what is the most valuable commodity that a state could develop and then use to build something we would all be proud of in Mississippi.
I mean, so in a utopic world where we got everything that we wanted, paint a picture.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Paint a picture of what that would look like in terms of where we are now without fully recognizing AI and the use of competitive networks. What would that look like specifically here in Mississippi?
Sure. Well, we can look to our neighbors as models of what it would look like. Probably the best model that we could use is Huntsville, Alabama. Mm-hmm. When I was young, just growing up, Huntsville was not that big of a town or city in Alabama, but it had the NASA Center that was beginning to build, part of the Department of Defense and the other federal research entities. And now you fast forward one generation, it's the largest city in Alabama. It is the highest per capita center of engineers and scientists. And they've created a knowledge-based economy that is an envy, not only in the Southeast, but around the world. So what I would like to see Mississippi do is take advantage of our competitive strength of supercomputers, co-locate all of our research institutions, both federal and university, in a Jackson Research Center and Tech Hub that would be both computational sciences and the advanced applications, whether it's in agriculture or healthcare or transportation distribution or advanced manufacturing or robotics. And also with UNC being here, have a designated comprehensive cancer center, a federally designated cancer center, so that we have hubs of research both in healthcare and in the science, technology, engineering, and math fields that brings a place where we can not only do research, but then train the workforce and then drive private partnerships with leading Mississippi companies, whether that is Nissan or C-Spire or national partners like Amazon or Google or Microsoft, so that we have a hub of public and private investments in the research, the workforce, and in the private sector that allows us to have a growth strategy for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. and that we replicate what Huntsville. So if you're asking, what does it look like? Go to Huntsville, Alabama. We can do that. We have all of the infrastructure in place. We have more fiber than any state in the region. We have more supercomputers than any state in the region. We just need a coordinated, common strategy of all of our political leadership, our private sector leadership, and our university leadership to build something that Jackson and Mississippi can all be proud of.
Wow. So, and going back to this, what you mentioned earlier in terms of the committees you served on when you were a staffer as well, were there any committees that you served on as a member of Congress that kind of helped you understand the work that you're doing now?
So working on those committees first as a Senate staffer, and then one part of my experience that I left off, I had the privilege of being in Congress representing the 3rd District of Mississippi, so parts of Jackson and central Mississippi, from Mississippi State, Meridian to Natchez, and then UMC, part of downtown. So the old, what is now the 3rd District of Mississippi. And while I was in Congress, in my first term, I served on the Science Committee. And most people don't realize the Science Committee at that time had the full jurisdiction of the internet. The internet at that point was government owned, government operated, primarily a Department of Defense. It was, under DARPA, the Defense Agency Research Program Agency, was the primary funder, creator, and manager of the internet, which then connected all of our university and federal research institutions to a research network known as the internet. And it was government owned, government created. In 1997-98, when I was a freshman member of Congress, I accidentally became the chair of the subcommittee, the Basic Research Subcommittee, that had the jurisdiction over the internet.
How did that accidentally happen, by the way?
Well, the chairman of the committee unfortunately passed away with cancer. I was his vice chairman. And because of my work as a Senate staffer on many of those research initiatives, they promoted me as a freshman to be the chair of the committee that was then responsible for negotiating the transition from a government-owned and operated internet to a privately multi-stakeholder governed commercial internet that we know today. So we reached an agreement with Congress, with the Clinton administration at that time, with the Department of Defense and the Department of Commerce, to then set up the .com, .edu, .org, the domain names, the registries, how we would form governing the governance of the internet with international stakeholders, nonprofit stakeholders, education institutions, governing institutions. So it was a very, I'm very blessed that Mississippi gave me the opportunity to be in the room, to not only do the 96 Telecom Act, which is kind of the constitution of the internet technology and telecom policy that still is the law of the land today, but to be in the room while we were transitioning from a government-based internet to a commercial internet that we know today, and that represent the universities and the private leaders that we mentioned earlier, like a Comcast, a SkyTel, a WorldCom, a C-Spire. Those companies really are the reason that Senator Lott wanted to be on those committees. The reason I wanted to be on those committees was to represent Mississippi's economy and technology at that point. And so there's a Mississippi history that doesn't get told very often, that when it comes to the policies that have shaped the last 30 years, Mississippi leaders were in the room shaping those policies.
Wow.
Now the question is, can we do that again? Can Congressman Thompson and Senator Wicker and the rest of our delegation work with our state leaders and our private sector leaders to build another Huntsville in Mississippi, to look at how we could be the leader of AI applications and the workforce, and in automotive manufacturing, whether it's Nissan or Toyota or the electric vehicles. The we have FedEx in Memphis, and we have KLLM in Columbia, Mississippi. We're the center of the South geographically. We can be a hub not only of transportation distribution, but also of data and of research and of the knowledge-based economy. That if we're smart, we can take advantage of those key building blocks that we've talked about, so that we do win the future. And Jackson should be the leader of that.
And so, why do you think Jackson should be the leader of that?
One, you have Jackson State.
I agree, by the way.
You have Jackson State, Tougaloo, two leading HBCUs. Our country, on a bipartisan basis, our private sector, on a comprehensive basis, have made a commitment to really increase minority and Black participation in STEM-related careers and professions. They want to find ways to partner with HBCUs. UMC and what their potential as a leading research institution in both health disparities, chronic diseases, whether it's hypertension, diabetes, cancer, others, and the new AI applications, the new engineering of medicine and biomedical and others that both Mississippi State, Jackson State, and Ole Miss, the advanced materials of both manufacturing and health and research that Southern Miss has, our two federal research centers. If we harness all of those things in a strategic plan, and those efforts are underway and those conversations are being discussed now, and what I hope over the next 2 years is that we see real progress, material progress, on creating a master plan and strategic plan to bring a comprehensive cancer center to UMC, to bring a research park to downtown Jackson, extending Jackson State's campus, but then co-locating and cooperating and coordinating with all the other research institutions, so that Jackson, which has over 40,000 college students located in the Jackson metro area. We have, not only Tougaloo, we have Belhaven, Millsaps, Mississippi College, our community colleges, both Holmes and Hines. We can, if we actually create a common vision around this, I think it is not only our most plausible and pragmatic and practical way to achieve this vision, but it's what makes the most sense for a future where Jackson is growing, where Jackson is thriving. And as you know, we've talked about a foundation that we helped start here in Jackson called the Great City. And our basic message is you can't be a great state without a great city.
Absolutely.
And every state in the Southeast has great cities that are growing and thriving, whether that's Birmingham, Huntsville, Atlanta, all through Florida, the Carolinas, Nashville and Knoxville and Memphis, Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas in particular is really growing and thriving right now. Mississippi and Louisiana are stagnant right now. We're not growing.
Why do you think that is?
I think it is it's a question of, can we, and we've done this before, and there are plenty of examples where Mississippi has done this before. If you look at the turn of the century, I think that we had a period of time where Republicans and Democrats at every level sat down in a room and worked together, and with our universities and our federal research centers, and we created a plan to recruit and attract the automotive industry, to expand and grow the aerospace industry, to build up our military bases and facilities and defense contracts that would then support those different initiatives, to work on the coast to really build up, our shipbuilding, all of the military installations and bases, and then with Stennis, what we do not only with NASA and space and the commercialization of those technologies, but we brought in NOAA, we brought in EPA, we brought in other federal agencies to build up our capabilities, and we saw tremendous growth during that period of time. And it was because we had a common plan, common vision, and everyone was at the table. Katrina came, and all of the efforts to build our future were then disrupted in a way that we had to simply recover. We had to restore, and all of our energy went into rebuilding after Katrina. We had the economic collapse in 2008. And for whatever reason, and I don't blame anyone, I think that common effort of all of our political and private leadership, we went into our own corners. And instead of working across the divisions and across the divide and in a bipartisan way, too often, we have not, as a small state, it can be a strength that if you're a unified state. But if you're a small state with limited resources and you're divided,
you're going to have a hard time getting anywhere.
You're going to fail, and you're not going to be able to compete and win and be successful. Like, I think Alabama has had tremendous growth and progress.
Tremendous, to say the least.
You look at Georgia, look at South Carolina, look at North Carolina, look at Tennessee, look at Arkansas now. Those are the models we have to both follow, but also compete with. What are our unique, distinct strengths that make us different than any of the other states? But the model of building a team, and then you work together and you execute with discipline over, not only the short term, but midterm and the long term, is really, those are the keys to whether a state is growing or not growing. And so if you ask me the question, why is Mississippi and Louisiana not doing as well? We need to do a better job of, and this comes from the private sector as well as the public sector, of unifying all of our leaders around a common strategic vision to build our state, take advantage of our strengths, and try to reduce the divisions that keep us from working together.
Absolutely. So your thoughts on how entrepreneurship plays a role into that? If you had to draft a piece of legislation that would support, that's one thing we are doing right in Mississippi.
Well, go back to, why was Senator Lott on the committees? Why was I, as a staffer and a member on the Energy and Commerce committees? We wanted to represent our entrepreneurs, our economy that created the WorldComs, the Comcast, the SkyTels, the C Spires. We wanted to represent that, what was then the emerging future. We wanted to reflect and represent what Mississippi was becoming. It wasn't that the public leadership created that economy, those technology, those companies. Now, it usually comes from the entrepreneurs from the private sector, and then the public leaders follow. And the public leaders, if they're smart, fight for those companies so that they can be successful. And so it does come from the bottom up. And so does community visions of, how do you restore neighborhoods? How do you rebuild a city like Jackson that has been in decline since 1980? How do we have the modern infrastructure, water, sewer? How do we develop, like other cities, our waterfront in a way that creates both beauty and investment? How do we build the sports stadiums of the future versus the past that enhance our universities, but also give young people a place where both athletics and entertainment districts. If you look at Austin and Nashville, Mississippi, we are the birthplace of American music. Our culture, our food is second to none, but we've really never taken advantage of that. So how do we have strategies. Not that that Jackson will be the size.
You're tapping on one of my favorite
I know.
things, tourism.
But it's not that Jackson, which is a city of 150,000, is suddenly going to be a city of multi-millions. But our Jackson metro area is 600,000. If we have the research hubs, if we have the modern infrastructure, if we have a city that's planning parks and trails and developing the riverfronts, and then having the venues of both our cultural institutions, from the Children's Museum to the Civil Rights Museum, the arts. There's just a lot of good that is happening with those core institutions that create both culture, entertainment, an attractive quality of life, a knowledge-based economy. So our foundation is really trying to work with every community leader and every neighborhood to try to find common projects that we can all support, and then use our experience in advocating at the congressional level, at the state level, the local level, and then bringing in private partners and foundations to support those efforts and those common projects that what we want would benefit all of Jackson, every part of Jackson, every neighborhood in Jackson.
So switching a little bit, let's talk about your day job a little bit.
Sure.
As president and CEO of INCOMPAS, what does the day-to-day look like? What do you all do at INCOMPAS?
Yeah.
And how does it play a part with everything else that you've got going on?
So just real quickly, who we are at INCOMPAS, what is our history? We started in 1981, advocating for the breakup of the old telephone monopoly, AT&T. So we are the founding voice of competition in telecommunications and technology. That core principle of promoting competition is still the same core mission of the organization today. We have members on both the supply side of the market and the demand side.
Who are some of your members, by the way?
So some of our members are on the demand side, the streaming, the over-the-top, the content, the AI, the autonomy, the cloud, all of those types of things that drive enormous demand to the broadband infrastructure. Those companies are Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and Netflix. It makes us distinct that we have.
So no X or Twitter involved.
Twitter was a member, and Twitter, as Elon Musk acquired Twitter, decided to make some changes. But we were very proud. I was very proud to have them as a member for a long time, and as a great company. But then we have companies like C-Spire here in Mississippi, Unity, Windstream. We have fiber companies, we have 5G companies, we have satellite companies, we have fixed wireless, we have business enterprise and government competing for the government contracts that serve every post office in the country and and are competing to serve every federal agency in the country. So we have this rich, diverse, both small companies, rural companies, urban companies, suburban companies. We have the national companies like Zayo and Crown Castle, and they really represent the Google Fiber, the new networks that are being built, usually coming and introducing in markets new competition, the third, the fourth option, so that people have higher speed, higher capacity, better innovation, and better service and lower prices. And we're advocating primarily for internet for all, broadband for all. We were the first association to advocate for the broadband funding coming out of the pandemic with a national goal of connecting every American to the internet at high speeds, and to provide the funding for many in our country that may not be able to afford broadband. And so that twofold: one, to deploy all the networks everywhere, and two, to give the resources to make sure that every American can connect to the internet. And so we were and I'm very proud of this, the first association. I partner with Mignon Clyburn, the daughter of Jim Clyburn, a congressional leader from South Carolina. But she was also a commissioner at the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, long time leader in broadband policy. She and I, on a bipartisan basis, go around the country, meet with all the mayors, meet with state broadband offices, advocate at the FCC, at Congress, and at the White House and the administration to try to achieve what I think coming out of COVID, every American really learned the hard way, is that we have to be connected.
We have to.
And whether that is for your school, your homework, your education, your job, for the social connection. And so we're very proud to continue that long 40-something year tradition of promoting competition, the new advanced networks, and then partnering with the technology companies on the new applications that ride over those networks. So that's who we are at INCOMPAS. And my day job is to advocate at every level on behalf of those policies and for those companies and the communities that they serve.
Wow. So if you were going to give some advice to just regular everyday folk about getting involved in government and business, what would that advice be?
If you want to get involved in campaigns and on the political side or on the public policy side, for the last 13 years, I've taught a class at Ole Miss on campaigns in Congress. And this question that you're asking is basically what Henry Barber, who was my campaign manager and good, great friend, he teaches the politics side. He's the hack, and I'm the wonk. And we both try to talk to our students about, if you want a career in public policy, like you, as we discussed earlier, can you work as an intern for a member of Congress? Can you get a job with a member of Congress or for one of your state legislative leaders or for the mayor or community leader? If you want to learn at the local, state, or the federal, then get the internship or get the work, get the experience. If you want to be on the political side, work for a campaign, volunteer for a campaign, learn what it is like. And experience is always the best teacher.
Absolutely.
And is always the best way to confirm, is this my passion? Is this my calling? Is this my purpose? And if it is, you'll catch the fever. And like all of us who have been in this profession.
Nothing like it.
Yeah. So I would, go for get the experience at an early age, high school, college, in between, in your summers, any internship that you can get. If you want to get into business, same, go to work in the field or the sector that you think your natural aptitude and interest is. Learn early, work hard, get an education that prepares you for those things. To be honest, I grew up in a political family, but I didn't think that this was going to be my future until I tried it and loved it.
Wow. So a favorite book that you've read?
Oh, that's I love Doris Kearns' book on Lincoln, Team of Rivals. And he had a great mission of trying to keep the country united. And I judge leadership not by whether you win campaigns, but can you unite a community or a state or a country? If you go back to King David, he was trying to unite the 12 tribes of Israel. If you go to George Washington, he was trying to unite the 13 colonies around a new nation, a new constitution. If you look at FDR, he was trying to unite the nation to overcome the Depression and then to confront Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan and to save the world from dictatorship. You look at Ronald Reagan, he was elected and then he won 49 out of 50 states. The great leaders, and Lincoln, and the reason is my favorite book, is he took all the candidates and the rivals that tried to defeat him when he ran for president, put them in his cabinet, and then he combined the best talents and the diversity of the nation at the time into a team of rivals. And that's basically, here in Mississippi, if I could,
You're thinking my thoughts now.
And my experience, working for Senator Lott, working with Haley Barbour, working through Katrina, working for a common vision, working with our university presidents, the best leaders are the ones who unite our people. And they unite them for a purpose. They unite them for a mission. They motivate them for a mission. They're willing to sit down with anyone, anywhere, whether they're a friend or foe or rival or ally, until they hopefully find a common purpose and the common areas where they can work together. They may not have to agree on everything, but can you agree on a core set of principles and then objectives so that the people you work with or for or represent feel like, yeah, this is something that I can have both a belief, a trust, and a confidence that the future is going to be better than the past, that progress is going to come and not decline. Those are the types of leaders, and the reason it's my favorite book is he probably went through the most difficult trials and tests, and somehow he kept the faith and kept the mission and kept trying to keep the union together.
I think that's a perfect place to end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us
You're
today.
very welcome.
You've heard it here on The Balanced Perspective. Thank you so much for joining us.